Pragmata is, for some people, one of the most emotional and most special games of 2026. For others, it is a major $60 disappointment. I genuinely loved this game. The bond I formed with Diana, that father-daughter feeling between Hugh and Diana, the hacking system, and the game's overall atmosphere affected me much more than I expected. But today, I am not going to repeat my own praise. Today, we are going to enter the world of people who did not like Pragmata. We will look at comments from those who found the game boring, saw its story as cliché, could not connect with Diana at all, and even said, "This might be the worst game of 2026. My goal is not to make fun of anyone, but some of these comments are really harsh. So let's see, can we understand why these people think this way? I don't know why this game is being hyped up so much. This game is genuinely something that will waste your time and your hours. Gameplay? There is none. The game is trash. They keep saying father simulator, and that girl is not cute at all. I mean, I did not see a proper father-daughter relationship. The Last of Us is 1,000 times better than this. If you want to see a father-daughter relationship, go play that instead. The girl is not cute at all. Hugh's character did not connect with me at all. Trash game. I refunded it 1 hour after opening it. I had never seen such a terrible game before. This might be the worst game of 2026. This comment starts off pretty harsh. In fact, it is a comment that is completely closed off toward the game from the start. But the most important detail here is this. They played the game for only 1 hour and refunded it. For a game like Pragmata, where the emotional bond and combat system open up over time, I think 1 hour is way too early. Of course, if Diana did not work for you, if you did not like Hugh as a character, and if the hacking shooting structure did not appeal to you, you may not want to continue. I respect that. But saying, there is no gameplay feels unfair to me. There is gameplay. It is just not built around classic action logic. It is built around the hacking system, breaking armor, positioning, and using Diana's abilities. I understand the comparison to The Last of Us, but I do not think Pragmata is trying to do the same thing. The Last of Us tells a much darker, more traumatic, and more dramatic father-daughter story. Pragmata, on the other hand, creates a purer, more sci-fi focused, and more charming bond. Because Diana connected with me, the game affected me a lot. But this comment shows something clearly. If Diana does not feel cute to you, and that protective feeling does not form, Pragmata's magic can completely disappear. Still, calling it the worst game of 2026 feels like a huge exaggeration to me. The game is mid. It's surface level and little more than that. It's fine and fun at times, but for a $60 price of entry, and as the first game for this new IP, I've got to say, it's remarkably unremarkable. The story itself is nothing, and exists for the gameplay alone. The gameplay is somewhat fresh, but it runs out of ideas quickly, settling for giving you a ton of upgrades and new abilities you do not even need because the game is simple, brain-dead, and way too easy. In this comment, the player sees Pragmata completely as mid. In other words, they are not saying it is terrible, they even say it can be fun at times, but as a new IP, they do not think it leaves enough of a mark. My experience was the complete opposite. For me, Pragmata became one of the most memorable new IPs I have played in a long time. Especially the bond with Diana and the hacking system left a genuinely strong impact on me. But I understand where this player is coming from. If you expect very deep systems, a very complex story, and a high level of difficulty from a game, Pragmata may feel surface level to you. Because the game does not make everything overly complicated. For me, that simplicity and focused structure was the game's strength. For this player, it became the exact opposite. A weakness. I think the developers focused too much on making you like this little girl and forgot to make a good game. Eat it. I finally completed the game and most of the side content. I saw the twist coming from a mile away, and funny enough, the entire plot turned into the most cliché little tale possible. I'm not going to spoil anything, but my god, it is bland. This comment hurts a little because, for me, Diana was the strongest part of the game, but I understand the player's criticism. Pragmata really does focus a lot on making you like Diana. In fact, a large part of the game's emotional weight is carried by her. If Diana does not connect with you, the game loses a lot of its power. Because the main story on its own is not a very original or extremely shocking story. I also cannot completely disagree with the criticism that the twist is predictable and the story feels cliché. I said this in my own review too. The moon base, artificial intelligence, robots, the escape story, these are things we have seen before. But for me, what made Pragmata special was not the twist. What made it special for me was the bond I built with Diana. When that bond works, the game rises. When it does not, it can look ordinary. It has some sweet moments, but it just never clicked for me. Gameplay is insanely repetitive. As enemies become stronger, they do not become harder to kill, it just becomes slower. Your main firearm has to recharge instead of just reloading. So you will often run out of ammunition with your stronger guns and spend a few minutes jumping, dodging, shooting, and waiting 10 seconds for your pea shooter to recharge. Basically just whittling their health down little by little and playing for time. This is one of the strongest criticisms of the combat. The player admits that the game has some sweet moments, but the gameplay never really clicked for them. I did not feel this harshly, because for me, the mix of hacking and shooting was the most creative part of the game. Breaking the enemy's armor, taking risks on the hacking screen, maintaining your position at the same time, and using Diana's abilities at the right moment felt very enjoyable to me. But I do admit this, if that core loop does not grab you in the first few hours, the game can genuinely start to feel repetitive. Especially if enemies become more durable instead of becoming more creative. Then for some players, that does not feel harder, it feels longer. For me, the variety was enough, but I do not think this criticism is completely unfair. The majority of clashes are just you trying to avoid 10 swinging robots at once in a tight space. I never felt like I was having fun with the combat. The story also is unfortunately paper thin and does not make up for anything. In this comment, it is very clear why the player disconnected from the game. The combat did not feel fun to them, and the story could not make up for it. Pragmata has two main pillars, the combat system and the bond built with Diana. If the combat does not feel enjoyable to you, and Diana does not pull you in either, then the main story on its own may struggle to carry the game. For me, this is where the game won me over through the character relationship. I thought less about what happened on this station, and more about, is something going to happen to Diana? But if this player did not connect with Diana, and did not enjoy the combat system either, I can understand why they found the game weak. Because Pragmata's main plot, by itself, is not extraordinarily strong. The star of the show, and the selling point of this game, is the AI child Diana, who they really do not do much with. Nor do they make any attempt to actually develop her character or make the player want to know more. You can run through all possible free time chats with her in the safe room within 3 minutes, and then it turns into her repeating little events and cutscenes over and over again. This is one of the comments that clashes the most with my own experience. Because to me, Diana was not just the selling point of the game, she was directly the heart of the game. Her voice, her curiosity, her reactions to small objects, her animations, and the bond she builds with Hugh worked really well for me. I did not see Diana as an empty character, but as the character carrying the emotional center of the game. But I do agree that there could have been more safe room content. I would have loved to see more small conversations with Diana, more everyday moments, and more interactions. Still, Diana's development is not delivered only through dialogue, but also through behavior. I felt her enough, but for some players, that may not have been enough. The game is great at casting the illusion of there being a lot of content, but that is all it is, an illusion. Behind the veil, there is very little going on, and the game feels unfinished and bare bones. I mean, at least it is not $70. Unless you bought the deluxe edition. You did not do that, did you? Yes, I bought the deluxe edition, and I do not regret it either. But jokes aside, I do not agree with the bare bones criticism. Pragmata did not feel like an unfinished game to me. It felt more like a focused game that knows exactly what it wants to do. It does not try to inflate itself with unnecessary systems, empty side missions, and filler content. Of course, expectations are very important here. If you expect a $60 game to have a huge amount of content, very long playtime, and constantly new systems, Pragmata may feel too small to you. But sometimes, I would rather play a clean and effective 20-hour experience than a 100-hour game where half of it feels empty. For me, Pragmata was that kind of game. 90% of the time, you are walking through white and gray, sterilized sci-fi space station hallways. And just when you think they are mixing up the environments, they fall back into white and gray hallways. People say the game looks great, but the overall art direction is so mid that I think the game ends up looking pretty ugly. I do not completely agree with this comment, but I can understand why they feel that way. Pragmata's sterile sci-fi aesthetic may not appeal to everyone. The white and gray hallways, clean laboratory feel, and cold space station atmosphere may feel boring or soulless to some players. But in my experience, the game was better in terms of visual variety than I was afraid it would be. At first, I also thought, are we really going to walk through white hallways for 20 hours? But as I progressed, I saw areas with a Times Square-like feeling, sections like the Botanical Garden, and different chapter atmospheres. Calling it ugly feels too harsh to me. I especially found Diana's model, the robot designs, and Hugh's costume quite successful. This game is so predictable it is getting on my nerves. Basically, the whole game is walk from room 1 to room 2, attack the same 5 enemies over and over and over and over again. Go to a room, get small bits of information, repeat. After this goes on, a boss, progress. And then the same thing again. The combat is easy if you play with 5 IQ, the story is predictable but okay, nothing special at all. This comment is harsh, but the core criticism is clear. The game's formula reveals itself early, and the player felt it as repetition. Move from room to room, fight enemies, collect small pieces of information, reach a boss, and then continue the same loop again. In reality, many action games basically work like this, but the important question is whether that loop feels enjoyable to the player or not. I enjoyed this loop in Pragmata because the hacking system added a different layer of attention to every encounter. I was not just shooting at the enemy, I was also managing another small strategy at the same time. But for this player, that core idea was not enough. If the combat in Diana do not grab you within the first few hours, the game can start to feel like, I am doing the same thing again, as it goes on. I am a bit too used to dark things with secret labs, so I miss finding grim details in notes or messed up experiments. This universe is so clean. Dude got all his friends killed and does not really seem traumatized or sad, even though he claims to be. No weird experiments in secret labs either. And for now, the way things are developing is quite basic. Activate the power, activate communications, and nothing really interesting besides 8. This comment shows the difference in expectations really well. The player expected a darker sci-fi experience, secret laboratories, disturbing experiments, horrifying notes, trauma, and a much grimmer atmosphere. But I do not think Pragmata is that kind of game. It offers more of a clean, emotional, and controlled sci-fi experience. Could more have been done with Hugh's trauma? Yes, I think it could have. The emotional weight of a character who lost his friends could have been felt more strongly. But Pragmata's goal is not to tell a horror story or a disturbing experiment story. It is more of an escape and bonding story built around the feeling of protecting Diana. In summary, friends, Pragmata is not perfect, but it is definitely a special game. Even though I agree with some of the combat and design criticisms, the emotional bond I built with Diana mattered more to me than everything else. So what is your priority? Pure gameplay, or that deep connection that pulls you into the experience? Make sure to write it in the comments. I will check all of them. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.